we are joined today by Adam Kubler and Amy Watts. Amy Watts has a BS in psychology and 30 years of experience supporting people with disabilities in a wide variety of settings across New Jersey. Being a family member of someone who experiences developmental and mental health diagnoses, she knows the value and necessity of person-centered planning. She is also an advocate of employment for all people. Amy is the Program and Community Liaison at the Progressive Center for Independent Living, is a member of DDAN, and on the board of NJAPSE. Adam Kubler has a BS in social work and over 15 years of experience in workforce development and has worked with a wide range of individuals, including those living with disabilities, in work readiness and employment. He has also directed the ARC of New Jersey's supported employment program, Project Hire. Adam also possesses a certified work incentive practitioner certification. He is currently a staff person at the New Jersey Council on Developmental Disabilities, a board member of the NJAPSE, and a member of DDAN. So I want to thank you both for being here. If you have any questions for Adam and Amy throughout the webinar, feel free to use the question and answer box or the chat box, and they will reply towards the end of the webinar. And without further ado, I will turn it over. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Erin. Our pleasure. Good afternoon, everybody. It's our pleasure to be here. On behalf of Adam and I want to say thank you for letting us present for you today. Show of hands if you guys have little icons or little something that you can show. Let me see how many people here are professionals. How many people are working with an agency? Okay. Yay, I copy things. Thank you. How many of you are advocates or parents of somebody who experiences a disability and is navigating this world? Great, thank you. Are there any support coordinators here? Okay. Is anybody I didn't mention? Who's my others? Great. Thank you so much. All right. So we're talking about working and you being perfect together. Sorry, I'm the one who keeps flipping the little screen around. Apparently, wherever I put my cursor, it makes the screen move. Working and you perfect together. We're doing this on behalf of NJAPSE. So New Jersey APSE is the Association for People Supporting Employment First. And APSE is a state chapter of a national organization. And literally all we do is work with states to improve, enhance, and ensure that people with any type of disability at all can do competitive integrated employment, which is the same employment that you and I do every single day. Oops. All right, Adam.
And my name is Adam Kubler. I'm a staff person at the Council on Developmental Disabilities. I won't bore you guys to death with reading my big bio here, but just understand that if you haven't heard of the Council on Developmental Disabilities, we are actually one of many. There are councils in every state in the country, and they really are committed, all of them, to advancing public policy and systems change that helps folks with developmental disabilities get more control over their lives in full spectrum of ways. But I am specifically the coordinator of employment services. So my area and kind of corner of the field is anything employment related. If you're interested in learning more or learning about how to get involved with some of the regional support councils that we have, please check out our website. You can see it on there. I think it's on the resources at the end of the presentation as well. But thanks so much for the opportunity to share with you guys.
All right, as Erin mentioned, I'm from the Progressive Center for Independent Living. We are one of the CILs, or Center for Independent Living, here in New Jersey. We're a federally funded resource which provides advocacy and independent living skills and information and education for anyone with any type of disability to become independent and to live within the community. We are federally funded, so all our services around that are free. at least to the consumers experience it. And we're also work with a traumatic brain injury fund. We're case management for that as well. So we have a bunch of other departments as well, like transition. So we actually work with students either transitioning from school to adult life, but also for people with disabilities transitioning from, say, assisted living or for nursing homes out into the community. So we work with anyone with any type of disability. And we are a resource here in Mercer and Hunterdon County. We do all. In Somerset County, we just do the independent living skills. But Mercer and Hunterdon County, we also do some support coordination. All right, enough of the introduction stuff. So the whole thing that we wanted to talk about today is how to use DDD, their Division of Developmental Disabilities, and DVR, Division of Vocation and Rehabilitation. They both have services related to employment. We want to talk today about how you can blend them all together and design them in a way that works for you. So why bother, right? So literally people with disabilities, money is not usually the main focus as to why their work. Okay, well, maybe sometimes it's about the money, but they're not maybe paying a mortgage, or they're not have a car payment. They're not paying all their bills. So why? So I'm going to age myself here a little bit, but if anybody watched Cheers, literally one of my favorite shows, my very, very favorite character was Norm. And every time Norm walked into the bar, everyone went, Norm! And he would have some fun thing to say as he walked over the bar and sat down, as he literally had already poured his beer and just handed it to him. Imagine how that feels when you walk in the door, and as soon as you walk in, they're like, hi, oh, I'm glad you're here. Or, hey, good to see you again. Or good morning. And you just walk into the door and people are happy to see you. Imagine what it feels like when you know that people are trusting you to take care of something important in that place. That's why you work. It's not always about the paycheck or exactly what it is that you're going to get. It is about the feeling you get for being a contributing member to your society, to walking in the doors and being someplace where they are happy to see you, they appreciate you being there, and you are wanted and you are respected. So there's this really great guy named John O'Brien. John O'Brien and his wife Carol are literally some of the pioneers in the field of person-centered planning. And John and Carol did some really great research, and they asked some amazingly open-ended questions. And the question they asked, and I'm purposely looking at it, is, what's so great about where you are and what's happening here? And it's just this really odd kind of broad question. But when they asked these questions, they got these tons of answers. And they took the answers and they broke it down into these 5 different categories, which they then called service accomplishments. And the concept is that if the services you are providing or the thing that you're doing with somebody hits some of these or even all of these accomplishments or these categories, then you're doing something that's really meaningful, that has a great impact on somebody. And in my personal opinion, employment hits all of these. So you're sharing ordinary places. So when you're working competitive integrated employment, you are working right next to somebody out in the community, at your local ShopRite, at your local office, at the post office, at the regular factory or wherever. It's an ordinary place. It's where everybody goes. Making choices. Well, I don't know about you, but employment takes a whole lot of choices as to where you work, what time you want to work, how you're going to get there, what kind of environment you want to work in, all that sort of stuff, what kind of hours you'd like to be there. Are you outside? Are you inside? So you're making a whole lot of choices when you're deciding where you want to work. Developing abilities. I have learned how to do so very many things through the different jobs that I've done throughout my career. So it's definitely as a chance, employment absolutely as a place for you to develop and grow and learn and do. Valued and respected by others. Norm. Somebody's excited and happy that you are there and you are respected by your coworkers. And growing in relationships. I don't know about all of you, but I have absolutely made friends that I have had for life at my jobs that I've worked at. So there's a chance for you to meet a fellow Eagles fan or a fellow, in my case, Trekkie or something along those lines. And you get to grow in those relationships and you get to meet and engage in things with with regular people in irregular places. And employment hits all of these really, really great categories.
So, employment, wonderful. How do folks with disabilities get supported in employment? In New Jersey, kind of, I'd say the primary, kind of maybe most memorable support that people hear of out there is called supported employment. That can be a word that's thrown around a bit for folks sometimes when they're still in high school. Certain staff may be called job coaches, employment coach. There's all sorts of different names for it, but really the service that people are providing is called supported employment. And the reason why that's so important to kind of look over what we do is because as we go further through the presentation, we're going to talk about what supported employment can do and what it can't. And there are limits to it. And figuring out what services you may or may not need to be successful in a competitive employment setting is going to be part of that. So backing up very basic, what is supported employment? Well, a supported employment professional, it's a vocational position, so very much like a teacher. So they do things like conduct assessments, they do job development, meaning helping people find jobs or look at what types of jobs might be interesting to them. They may conduct or help arrange what's called job sampling, which lets people kind of check out a workplace, see what it's like, see if it's something you'd like, see if it's something you don't like. They do the bread and butter of a good supported employment professional does job coaching. That's what a lot of them spend most of their time doing, which is helping people learn those skills that they need to be successful at work. They can also do other things like customized employment, which can mean helping to set up very specific types of positions in different settings. And then finally, long-term support. This is not an all-inclusive list, but generally this is what most supported employment folks are going to be doing out there. You can go to the next slide. So I mentioned it before, there are some limits to supported employment. Why that's important, not so much for other folks, but for providers, they actually have to explicitly provide certain types of services. And if they do not or go outside of that scope, it actually can get people in trouble, not just because they're not qualified to do those services, but it's just very important that those are, would you flip back there? Thanks. That we just know there are limits to what supported employment does. And so just as we kind of lay the landscape here, while supported employment is vocational and helps people learn those skills at the job and be successful at work, there are certain things that they actually explicitly cannot do. One of those things is one-to-one assistance for the long term. This is a common misconception. Usually what can happen is when folks are still in high school, the school may employ an aide, but they might call them a job coach, which can kind of muddle what the actual service is that's provided by a job coach in the adult world. So just know that a supported employment professional is not intended to be one-to-one for the long term. And that means start of shift, end of shift, every shift for the foreseeable future. Safety monitoring is another item that really isn't teaching. If you're monitoring someone for safety, it's not within the scope of a teacher in the employment setting. Task prompting, so that could mean being unable to move from one task to another. It really all is under that category of one-to-one for the long term. If the individual is not able to work without someone present, that's not a huge problem. It's just that is not what a job coach does. Social interaction is another example. If somebody is unable to communicate with others, they can't have a supported employment person there in the event that they need to communicate. Again, that's not really in the scope of what supported employment does. And then completion of job tasks, meaning employment professionals, supported employment, they do not do the jobs for the individuals. They help people learn to do them themselves. Some other items that people should watch out for in the future: intensive assistance, meaning that assistance that people get at the beginning of hire, it ends roughly It's not a, set in stone, but roughly about 90 days from the outset of the job. If you're getting services from the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, they're going to be reducing that support from that point. Just know that at the beginning of hire, they do acknowledge that a coach does probably need to be there a good amount of time, if not the whole shift. But the intent is that those services will be faded over time. 90 days is kind of their kind of measuring stick that they use to start figuring out when to fade. Finally, when it comes to receiving supported employment, your DDD budget, if applicable, handles the long-term coaching needs. That can be a weird transition. Sometimes folks that are receiving services from their local Division of Vocational Rehabilitation will have their job coaching switched from DVRS to DDD for the long term, and they handle that long-term coaching. You can go to the next slide. And so that sounds confusing, right? And so I thought I'd just kind of hammer that home a little bit more. Folks can ask questions about it too at the end. There are two, what we would call in the business, primary funders of supported employment. So these folks aren't actually the ones providing supported employment, meaning generally someone from DVRS is not just sitting there with you at your job. Instead, they have hired an agency to do it. So because there are two different funders for supported employment, they signed what's called a memorandum of understanding. And under that memorandum, the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, or DVRS, really is the primary funder, meaning that's where most people go, whether you receive DDD services or not. That's where most folks go to find a job. So that means getting help from a supported employment professional to fill out applications, get in touch with employers, research your area to figure out what jobs might be available. They also can help with learning how to do your job. That's that intensive services, that intensive job coaching that can be at the beginning of hire to really help get things started. Then for that long term, once someone is stable, usually around 90 days. It's not set in stone. That is not a hard and fast rule. That's just generally about what it ends up being. At that point, if DDD is in the cards, not everyone who uses DVR is going to receive DDD. But for those that do, your DVR case is closed and you work with your support coordinator to have a job coach visit for the long term. So those individuals will keep you updated on learning to do your job. Let's say you get new job tasks and different types of support needed for the long term as you're doing more or less pretty well. So one thing to note is that if you have gone through the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, it is possible that they can decide that they would not like to take your case for one reason or another. That isn't the end of the road. It's just the start. And so you have to start with DVRS. But if they do decide that, well, you know what, we don't want to work with you for whatever reason, at that point, you do have the opportunity to talk with your support coordinator about getting those same primary services through your DDD budget. It's just that technically speaking, you really do need to go to the Division of Voc Rehab first. So you can go ahead and go there. So benefits, this is the big one, the $1 million question. No pun intended. So there's a lot of information out there, some good, some bad, some vague. What happens to Social Security and Medicaid when I get a paycheck? You should not go into employment with this being a mystery. There absolutely are resources to help you out in this area. So these are some tips. While it's not the main focus of this, I do want to make sure that people just understand that you can get this service. It's part of this whole idea that Amy and I are talking about of combining services to make sure you're successful there. So job coaching is just one part of it. Another part of it is going to be benefits. So in New Jersey, there's what's called benefits counseling. And really, in simplest terms, it's one-on-one conversation with a certified benefits counselor. There is a certification process. I myself went through it, but there are agencies out there that employ folks who have gone through this and are certified in looking at people's cases as it relates to working. How do you get in touch with those folks? The primary place that anyone goes who's interested in employment is the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation Services. So if you have an open case with them, you can talk to your counselor about benefits counseling. They can connect you with someone, doesn't cost you a dime. Very, very much recommended. If you have a DVR case, please, please, please talk to your counselor about benefits counseling. It's a great service, and it really will help you answer some of those questions, take a lot of the mystery out of it. Now, again, if for some reason VR is not an option for you and you've exhausted that resource, you could, I'm going to put a little star next to that, talk with your support coordinator about possibly getting benefits counseling through your DDD budget. Now, the star there is that there is not the same kind of oversight that you're going to see with DVRS. Under supported employment, so your job coaching agency technically can provide benefits counseling under that definition as it relates to work. However, not every supported employment agency has folks that are certified. So make sure that if you do need to go that route, talk to your support coordinator about finding someone who is certified. And as far as some of those kind of magic numbers, I get that question all the time. Well, how much can I earn before I lose my benefit? Unfortunately, it's not that simple. I wish it was. But each case is very, very, very individualized. But just know this. In New Jersey, we have a great program called NJ Workability. And what it is, it's a Medicaid program for folks who live with disabilities who want to work. If you are working, you actually could, and live with a disability, in New Jersey, technically speaking, your individual income could be up to $73,932 per year. That's about $6,000 or so a month. And you would still receive your Medicaid to make sure that you have access to those DDD services that are connected to it. That is a huge oversimplification, but just know that that is an option in New Jersey. And your benefits counselors are the ones that will help you navigate that and make those decisions. So I think that's it for that slide. Yep.
All right. So let's pretend you are comfortable with your benefits, you have a job coach, and you have found a job. So now what happens? What happens if you need some help while you're at your job? Because like Adam said, initially you maybe were in school and you had a school personnel that was with you. They drove you to the work site and things along those lines. So the first question that if anyone brings this to me that I will ask is, who is paying for the supported employment service? If DVR is paying for your job coaching, okay, they're paying for your supported employment, and you have a DDD budget, so you are attached to DDD, you can use individual supports or community-based supports. That's two different names for the same service, which is that one-on-one human being who hangs out with you and does stuff that you need them to do. Transportation, so they can drive you there, or you are using your budget for Uber or Lyft, or you're using a transportation service. If you need an interpreter, say you use ASL and you need an interpreter, or you need a little bit of behavior supports because that's, you just do, you can use those at the same time that you have your DVRS job coach. So they literally could be standing next to each other and working at the same time. If DDD, through that memorandum of understanding, has taken over your job coaching support, so you've got the job, you've had the job coach for a while, and now you know how to do the job, you're clocking in and out well, you're taking your breaks on time, and now they've faded out, and now you have more job coaching supports, but it's long-term follow along. So they're just popping in. They're checking in on you once a week. They're helping to work with your manager to make sure things are going okay. Then these need to be what's called sequenced or done at different times. So if you had transportation, the transportation can get you to work. And then your job coach could meet you at work. And then your individual support staff could then show up, run their done or just a little bit after they're done, and then continue to work with you. So the individual supports, community-based supports, and transportation need to be sequenced or done at a different time than your job coach is if DDD is paying for the job coach, because you can't double bill. However, interpretation and behavior supports can happen at any time, even if DDD is paying for the supported employment. So the idea is that you can use your DDD budget to help enhance what you're getting from DVR, which could be the job coaching, or literally if you're working in the community and you just need a human being with you for safety, to stay on task, or all those great things that Adam was saying that supported employment doesn't do, your support staff can do with you while you're at your job. So it's a way to continue to do all those great supports that maybe we realized you needed when you were doing the transition for school. You're like, I need a person. Maybe they bring your attention back to on task, or maybe they help you take your break on time, or you need some personal care assistance, either to eat or use the bathroom or things along those lines. You use your DDD budget to pay for the staff, and then you use supported employment as a separate service. Supported employment, when you're doing long-term follow-along, does not have to be on the job site. So if it makes sense for your job coach to meet you at home just before you go on shift, maybe just before you use your transportation to get to work, or even afterwards, say you're off shifts and you're home and the job coach meets up with you there, that's how you can use it and continue to get the support while you're still getting the one-on-one, hands-on, getting you to the job, getting the extra support you need while you're on the job site, but you just use your DDD budget to pay for all of that. All right, we're done talking to Joe. What we'd hopefully like for you to do, if you could raise your hand and we can use our ARC New Jersey people to kind of help us out a little bit, we'd like to hear your stories. Does anyone have something that's going on at work that you'd like to talk about, or somebody who is supporting someone who would like to kind of talk through or just describe a scenario, maybe that they're using supplemental services or that you're trying to figure something out? Oh, come on. We know you came on here to hear some good stuff. This is a chance to talk us through.
So we have Wendy asked, if you have Medicaid and SSDI, can you still get SSDI on workability?
Yes, because SSDI is your Social Security Disability Insurance. You can have Medicaid and Social Security at the same time. Medicaid. So the great part about Medicaid is that it is a separate service. You can either have SSI, which gives you Medicaid, or you have SSDI, which gives you Medicare. You can have Medicaid and Medicare at the same time. So you use your Medicaid through workability because you're working, and you'd get Medicare through your SSDI. So the short answer is yes.
Yeah, and if I could just add, Wendy, so this is super common, by the way, and extremely normal. I'm just a little concerned that when you say SSDI, you may mean SSI, which is more traditionally linked with Medicaid. And the answer, if that is what you intended to ask, is that if you or someone you know has SSI and receives Medicaid automatically by qualifying, the simple answer is yes. NJ workability, it absolutely can be the type of Medicaid that someone receives. When it comes to DDD services, they only require that you receive Medicaid. It doesn't say what type. And so NJ workability is just another type. There's also a Medicaid that is linked directly to your SSI. I could go way into the weeds. It's called 1619A, I believe, or it could be B, depending on your situation. But that is a type of Medicaid that's linked with SSI. but states can have their own Medicaid programs like we do. NJ Workability, it's one of 9 other programs actually we have in New Jersey. It's very confusing. But yes, NJ Workability, you can absolutely receive that along with SSI, and it does not impact SSDI because SSDI is not concerned with your health coverage. They just want to know about earned income.
Yeah, I'm gonna toss one more in there just because we're talking about Medicaid. If you have some income difficulties, because maybe there's additional income coming in either from a settlement or somebody still receiving child support or things along those lines. If you need DDD services, there is one more type of Medicaid, which is for DDD supports program only. So it is meant so that if you need DDD services, but you're having issues with your income to get on Medicaid, you can get in that way too. So that's probably a whole, Medicaid is its own webinar. But so the short answer is yes, there is multiple ways you can combine Social Security and Medicaid. And as Adam mentioned, DDD requires that you be attached to Medicaid in order to receive services. Did I see somebody raise their hand?
Yes, Adam. Would you like to talk about something that's going on at work?
I'm sorry. I missed a question.
No, I think it's a different Adam.
Oh.
Oh, yeah, no, sorry.
Sorry about
Sorry. All right. I don't actually see Adam on anymore, so we can come back, but we do have a bunch of questions. Someone asked, you can only get services from DDD after age 21, correct?
So yes and no at the same time. So welcome to the COVID clause. If you are 21, if you are 21 and you stayed in school the extra year that you could because they extended one extra year because of COVID, you can actually receive DDD services when you're turned 21 and still be in school. The simplest answer though is that you can apply for DDD at the age of 18. And I say apply, and I say it that way for a reason. Once you turn 18, you're a legal adult. You can apply for DDD, which also allows you to apply for Medicaid under just your income. As of today, you do still need to be 21 years old and have finished your school entitlement, which means you have officially graduated from school before you can receive DDD services. It is currently in the works with this next iteration of the waiver to have people who are between 18 and 20, if they have finished their school entitlement, that they will then be able to get access to DDD services. It's not here yet, but it is in the works with the acknowledgement that some people, it just made sense for them to graduate from school before the age of 21, either for cognitive reasons or for whatever other reasons. It made sense for them to stop being in school. DDD noticed the gap that was happening, like, oh, well, it made sense for me to graduate at 19, but I can't have DDD until 21. So they acknowledge that gap and they're working on fixing it. But as of today, you need to be 21 years old and you need to have completed your school entitlement in order to receive supports and services from DDD.
All right, and Adam is raising his hand. Adam? You should be able to unmute now.
Hi,
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 Adam.
Adam.
my friend Michael had a new job.
Yeah? What new job did he get?
He work high school.
Cool. What does he do there?
He cooking.
Cooking? Nice. Does he do the little carts cooking, or does he like cook food in the back and it gets sold?
So,
The stuff that gets sold?
yes,
That's awesome. Are you working?
I work at ShopRite.
You work at ShopRite. Oh, and what
Oh,
sorry, what do you do at ShopRite?
I pack.
Oh, you're doing bagging. Okay. Do you like your job?
Yes.
Yeah. How long you been working there?
5 years.
Nice. Have you made some friends there?
Yes.
Yeah. Some people you like, are they happy to see you when you go in?
Yes.
So is it fair to say it feels good? It feels good to be working?
Very good.
Very good. Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Are you all by yourself at work or does somebody stay at work with you?
Only me.
Only you. Well, all right, man. Great job. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
And we have a few more questions. Evan said, what is the difference between individual support and community-based support as DDD service?
All right. Welcome to DDD. This is in their infinite wisdom. They're the same thing. It just depends on which budget you have. If you have a supports program budget, it's called community-based supports. If you have a community care budget, it's considered individual supports. It literally means that one-on-one human being that you hire either, okay, some more letters, my apologies, DSP, a direct support professional. So you hired a company to give you a person to do one-on-one staffing supports with you, or an SDE, self-directed employee, which means you hire just a person to come be your staff. So individual supports and community-based supports means a staff that is a one-on-one staff with you. It just depends. It's a different name for the same service, depending on which budget type you have. Thank you, DDD.
Excellent. And we have from Anonymous in the Q&A, my 19-year-old daughter works once a week through school in Montclair. She has 2 more years of school. We live in Bergen County. How can I help my daughter to find a job near where we live?
Adam, you want to take that one? Up, unmute, babe. Adam, you muted.
Sorry, I was answering another question there. The next one I'm answering with text. So as far as looking for work, being 19, it would depend. Are you still? I would need to know. Are you still in high school or not? That kind of would change the answer.
It says they have 2 years left of school.
Okay, so sorry, the question disappeared, so I didn't see it. So it's a little hairy. So the truth is that simply speaking, if you found a job, or if you talk to your local division of vocational rehabilitation services and they decide that you are ready to look for work, that then you could get what's called a supported employment professional. Wouldn't cost you anything, and they would work with you to find that employment. Generally speaking, there's kind of a difference between the way it should be and the way it is. And so generally the way I see it is that when folks are still in school, really most of the supports that are done in school are to help people get more experiences so that after graduation, when they can more easily access assistance looking for work, you have more options because you've had more experiences. So in general, most folks generally should be trying to get as many experiences as they can while they're still in high school. However, if employment is in the cards, your local division of vocational rehabilitation services can help you with job coaching even before graduation. So, maybe before we're done here, I think maybe Aaron probably has it, I'm sure, but if you just have the link to the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation Services website, they have a referral form and you can get in touch with them before graduation, which is usually beneficial. It's good to get that started before graduation.
What you can also do, there's a service called Pre-Employment Transition Services. So pre-ETS for short, sorry. more letters. But pre-ETS is meant to enhance what you are getting already through school for your transition time. So between 19 and 21 is definitely in those transition years. If what your daughter is getting is not sort of that community integration, it's not sampling, like Adam was saying, like job sampling in the community. If you're missing maybe some career exploration or things along those lines, you can open a case with DVR and they would hire a provider that could, like Adam said, either do full supported employment because, dude, you're ready to go and you're over 18, so you can work, or you want just sort of enhanced employment supports, which means you'd hire a provider to give you pre-ETS, which gives you above and beyond what your school is able to do to help you find a very particular job or a career path, or maybe learn some extra skills so that you can kind of figure it out. They can do more, maybe job exploration and things along those lines. So there's a couple of them. Both of them come from DVR. You can also just keep working with your transition team too. I've had some success with some parents and some people saying, hey, this is what I want out of my transition experience during these next couple of years when you're at our IEP meeting. Say, hey, this is what we want her transition time, or this is what I want my transition time to look like. You really can personalize it. You got to push because schools are used to a set path, but this is why Adam and I are here to kind of talk about personalizing that experience. It can go all the way back to, hey, I'm 19 years old. I've got 2 more years. And this is what I want my experience for transition to be over those 2 years. Speaking up for it and kind of pushing forward, you'd be surprised what you'll be able to accomplish.
Okay. We have someone say, I get DVRS support, but I wasn't sure if I could also get DDD support.
If you have a developmental disability that affected your life before the age of 21, then yes, you can apply to DDD. There are 2 levels that you need to approve for. One is that you experience a disability before the age of 21 that derailed your development, and 2, that you have a functional level of need. If you are a kind of super high flyer that needs almost no supports, you might not qualify. But if you need even kind of a moderate or mild amount of supports, you need to prove that you need enough supports that it makes sense for DDD to jump into your life and to offer you a budget to then self-direct your supports. So yes, you can absolutely have DVR and DDD at the same time. Absolutely. That's that memorandum of understanding that we talked about. It means that they play nicely in the sandbox together and share their toys.
All right, we've got a lot of questions rolling in. What is the difference between, oh, we read that one. I'm a parent of a 21-year-old son. He's exiting school system in June. I'm also in the process of applying for self-directing employee from his DDD budget, but he's also considering attending a vocational program through Project Search for 1 more year. How can DVRS assist with funding for the Project Search program and any supports, including me as his employee? And that one's in the chat. If you want to read it.
Adam, if you want to touch on the Project Search part, I'll talk about the staff part.
Yeah, sure. I didn't see that question come up. Oh, it's in the chat. That's why.
Yeah, it's in the chat.
Okay, hold on. So sorry, I was answering another one. I'm trying to knock out some of the text ones here. So yes, applying through conservation. Oh, cool. So Project Search. Yeah, Project Search is great. So I was on the steering committee for the Union County Project Search for 7 years. When I was directing Project Hire, we had a staff person who was the skills trainer for the Project Search in Union County. And so DVRS does not assist. Well, okay, it's complicated. So Project Search is paid for by DVRS in some ways and by the school district if the individual is still in school. There are adult services models that I'm less familiar with because ours was not an adult model. But the traditional Project Search model is that you have a host business and then you have DVRS is funding some type of a community organization to help with placement and coaching and skills training. And then an educational entity that's funding a teacher there. So for Project Search, it does require some kind of a tuition, if you will, from the school district. DVRS pays the rest. So that's how, DVRS is helping for anyone that's in Project Search, but there is a contribution that's required from the school district. And so, generally I believe the way it works is that there's an online, depending on what site you're applying to, you apply and someone will reach out, and depending on the exact area, someone would reach out probably to your school district too and your child study team, and they'll talk to them about that stuff.
And as for the SDE, and I'm kind of just reading this over, making sure I do it right too. So the SDE, or you as your staff, is paid through the DDD budget only. That's not something that DVRS would pay for. So you can do Project Search through your DVR budget or your DVR case, and then do the SDE through your DDD budget. And that's a really great way to get, like we were talking about, to kind of blend or braid those services. You could have it. Yes.
Okay. Can a CBS staff drive a client to a job place? And if a client needs medication at work, who can help, a job coach or a CBS staff?
Yeah, I just typed the response to that, but yes, so community-based supports would be a staff that you are purchasing through your DDD budget. Yes, the staff can absolutely drive them to work. That's part of their job duties. They will not get paid mileage, but they can get paid for their time. So long as they are, driving just the person, or the driving they're doing is with that human being that they're supporting, going to the places that person wants to go, the staff can get paid to do that. And while on the job site, it would need to be the staff. A DVRS job coach will not administer medication. Community-based support staff, whether they're a DSP, again, that direct support professional, or that SDE, the self-directed employee, go through specific training for medications to make sure that they're doing it safely and correctly.
Okay, and then I'm trying to go in order of the time of who commented. So we're back in the Q&A box. Wendy asked, can you talk about DVRS funding courses?
Not sure what that means.
Wendy, do you want to clarify in the Q&A? And then we'll go to the next question while you're clarifying. My daughter already has an assigned personnel from DVRS. Should I contact her? My daughter has really low cognitive level.
So what are they? So it depends on what it is that you're looking for. If she has a DVRS counselor already, then yes, that's the human being that helps you kind of navigate the DVRS system. They would have done an assessment to see if she would qualify for supports from DVR. And if they've said yes, then yes, that's the human being you would contact to kind of answer questions about what getting a job coach or supported employment provider and things along those lines. If she's got, her cognitive level is one that she needs quite a bit of supports. Sometimes DVR says that they don't see her as qualifying for their supports. And so you, like Adam mentioned before, that's when you can shift to DDD. And if you want to continue to find a job coach and kind of continue to look for work, you would then work through your support coordinator to do that part. And I hope that answered that question.
And then Wendy followed up, and I can take this one. So she replied that the clarification was that she'd received information from DVRS that they can pay for vocational courses. And yes, that is true. But there's a few factors. One is that when you go to vocational rehabilitation, they don't do both, meaning you don't go there to look for work and get school. You go there to look for work or get training. So you have to choose that path. So if you're on the employment path, they're not usually going to pay for any training. That may not be true because I'm not a VR counselor, but in general, once you've chosen the employment path, they look at the skills you have today, and then they try to help you determine what type of job you'd like to look for. And then it's put in what's called an IPE. Now, for the vocational side, there's different criteria. Yes, they do pay for some types of vocational training. There's going to be financial criteria a lot of times, and other things. And so you would need to talk to your counselor about what trainings they may or may not pay for. That's going to be variable by each office.
Okay, and then back to the chat box. Could you kindly clarify if you can apply to DDD at 18, even if you haven't graduated from high school, so that you are approved in advance of age 21? Thank you so very much. This is a wonderful webinar.
You are most very welcome, and the answer is yes. You can apply for DDD and get through the process with the knowledge that it will not start to get access to services until you're 21. They will ask you to do what's called the NJCAT, or New Jersey Comprehensive Assessment. Can't remember what the last T stands for, but it is the many questions to ask what level of supports you need. So you can go through all that in advance. You absolutely need to start with Medicaid, or DDD won't even talk to you. So at 18 years old, the best place to start is Medicaid, which you would get initially through Social Security. So you qualify for SSI, like Adam was talking about. When you get SSI, it gives you Medicaid. When you get Medicaid, you then talked to DDD to then go through that 2-level assessment to then get access to your level and your tier, and it'll be ready for you when you turn 21. So it's enough to do, but start with Social Security and Medicaid. By the time you're 21, you'll be set. But yes, you can apply after they turn 18.
And then back to the Q&A box. If the person needs a specialized communication partner to attend work, who would pay for that specialized rapid prompting communication partner? Would it be DVRS or DDD or both? This person would need this for life.
It would be DDD. So again, DVRS will give you support employment or a job coach. So it's that person that's specially trained in order to help you gain, keep, and learn your job. The staff for communication would be through DDD. And yes, keep on going for the rest of your life.
And something, I think that there's a slide coming up about it, but just on that note, as far as coordinating something like that, one thing I would recommend is if it's pretty clear that the individual is going to need that type of support for the long term, and it's just like you said, lifetime, there's just no question. Make sure that there's a conversation early on so that that person can come and go with them at the least, just to get the kind of the lay of the land at a new job or something like that, just to help with that transition. So, it always helps. We'll mention it later. One of the things to remember is that when it comes to DVR and DDD, a lot of people are under the impression that, they sit maybe in the same office or that they're in regular communication. They're totally different entities. I mean, they're not in the same office. They don't talk to each other regularly. So make sure you take it upon yourself that if you have a VR case open, make sure you introduce your support coordinator to really kind of get that moving, because you might have to do that. I mean, I think probably on paper they're supposed to, but for various reasons it can be difficult. It will really help you in the long run if you can kind of get them together.
Yeah, and I want to, since it looks like we got just a couple of minutes, want to just kind of talk about this a little bit, and then we'll get back to whatever questions we can do. Working is your choice. If you want to work, then let's figure it out. Talk to your DVR counselor, talk to your support coordinator, talk to your family members, talk to your staff and your advocates. Let's figure out how to make that happen. You can, and you really should, talk to DVRS, but if you don't actually have to. If you just happen to have a family business and you would like to just kind of get a job and work there, you absolutely can. You don't have to use supported employment unless you want to. And DVRS and DDD are very different in that DDD, you qualify for it by having that developmental disability and by having that level of need. DVR needs you to knock on their door and say, hey, I want to work. Can I please see if I qualify for your services? They won't reach out to you and won't kind of say, hey, you want to qualify for me. You have to go to them. And as Adam said, just ensure that your DVRS counselor knows that you do work with DDD as well, and that you have a support coordinator, and give them permission to talk to each other. Just that level alone can make a really big difference.
Right. Then we have, I have a question regarding financial responsibility for DVR services. As far as I understand, if a child is under 22 years old, has graduated high school, and received their diploma, their parents are responsible for paying for DVR services. My child is 21 years old, unemployed, and receives DDD support. I'm wondering if we decide to go back to DVR for services, will my son's DDD budget be used to pay for the DVR services?
No, there's no cost for DVR services. I'm not quite sure where they got that initial information from. But if you qualify for DVR services, it is state and federally funded. There is no cost to the human being who's receiving DVR services. Your DDD budget covers only things that DDD cover. DDD does not pay for DVR.
Yeah, they do different services, the only exception being supported employment, which is where it gets a little confusing. But when you start looking for work through VR will help you with supported employment as far as looking for work and intensive help on a job. But once you're stable, maybe that's what the
Maybe, yeah,
individual
then it
talking about.
shifts your DVR.
And it does shift to your DDD budget for the long term. That is
Yeah.
true. Yeah. But going back to VR, if they just decide your case is open again, VR would do the same
Yeah.
thing. They'll cover
There's no
those
cost for that.
services.
Yeah, there's no cost to a human being for any VR services. Any services through DVR, there's no cost to you for that.
Excellent. All right.
I'm so glad
Noreen?
you asked that, because that sounded really confusing.
Yeah.
Noreen asked, does DVRS help with post-transition education, college, in order to get a job?
For those that qualify, yes, there are financial requirements. One thing that happens a lot I see is that people get turned off when they apply to VR because they ask them pretty invasive financial questions. That's why they're asking them, is to see if they qualify for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it'll be a partial payment. It absolutely so Adam talked about that IPE, individualized plan for employment. That's the plan they would make. So they kind of sit down and have a really great deep conversation about what your plans are for the future. And if your employment plans need you to get a degree or need you to get some technical training, they will cover part of it. And you can actually supplement that from your DDD budget, so long as the school accepts funding through DDD budgets. And that's a whole nother grand adventure. If you need help with that, you need to let me know. But yes, you could actually use both funding sources to help pay for things like that. DDD will not pay for a degree. You can't go get your master's degree on DDD's dime, but you can take individual courses that help you to learn the skills you need to enhance what it is that you're doing for work. So I had a gentleman who used it. He took IT classes. He took enough IT classes individually and then was able to go on and privately go get his certification. But he was able to use his DDD budget to pay for individual IT classes.
And then just another thing to throw out there, if you receive, SSI, you're going to be able to use what's called a PASS program too. It's another way to help pay for like training in school. You submit a plan to Social Security and they will, if you're working, and they will actually count less of your income against your SSI check to help you go to school sometimes. So that's another thing to look out for.
Okay. If I get DVRS funding support for college, can I also get support from DDD?
Yes.
Sure.
Yep. It won't.
As long as you still get Medicaid. Yeah. And yep.
Yeah. And actually, once DVR has paid what they will for school, if there's money left over that's still owed, that's what you can then tap your DDD budget. DDD budget needs to always be the last funding used. So you'd have to exhaust the funding that you can get from DVR before you tap your DDD budget. But you can absolutely do both of those at the same time.
And then Evan wanted to clarify, does that mean that the community-based support staff is on the site at all the time when the job coach is with the person?
Only if DVR is paying for the job coach. If DVR is paying for the job coach, the DDD budget can pay for the staff at the same time. And yes, they can be there together. If he is in long-term follow along and DDD is paying for the job coach, then no, they need to be there at separate times.
And so the kind of, if that's in the cards, the way to kind of plan for that, can't stress that enough. I would see this in the field a lot. If people needed a CBS, they would wait until VR funding stopped to employ the CBS, and that's the wrong way to do it. What you want to do is that if you're identifying that a community-based support is going to be needed for the long term, get them there while the job coach from DVR is providing intensive services. So the job coach is there pretty much all the time. Send in your community-based support to just get introductions, lay the land, what's the person, who's their supervisor, that kind of stuff. And what usually would happen is after about 90 days, when DVR decides, okay, the individual is pretty stable, they axe the job coaching, the community-based support really can probably take it from there. And then down the road, let's say they get a new job task or a new supervisor. The support coordinator can reach out to a supported employment agency. They do a little coordination, maybe call off the community-based support for a week, have the job coach come back, get that up to speed again, and then make a handoff to the community-based support. It's a little hairy, unfortunately, but that's just how the process works when someone is in, Amy said, the long-term phase.
What can also happen too is job coaching can still be done virtually and it can be done over the phone. So while he's actually at the job site, your CBS staff is there, and then they do a phone call to the job coach and call in and say, hey, this is what's happening. Like Adam said, because the staff was there during that intensive training phase and kind of watched how the job coach did stuff, the job coach can actually coach the person as well as the staff, so that the staff kind of knows what steps to be done. It's still being designed by the job coach and it's still being advised by the job coach, but the actual implementation of it turns out being the staff who's on shift with the person. So there's just, again, you just got to be kind of creative and working way around it. But that's why we're talking about it, because you can do it.
Yeah, a great workaround we would do is cell phones. If the job coach is on site and the two cannot cross, you have the job coach do a little video with the individual's permission, of course. You do a little video of what it needs, email it off to the community-based support, and they can do it on their time then. Just an idea.
Excellent. So Noreen had asked previously if DVRS helps with the post-transition education in order to get a job, but she had a part 2. If they're 21, will parents' income count?
It's just not that simple. I mean, it just depends. There's so many factors. There's a lot of factors there. That's something you have to individually, so generally speaking, if the individual is dependent, then yes, that's going to be a big factor. If the person is independent, generally it's not, except if they're in the same household. Then you're going to have, so you can see how this gets really nuanced. So the only person who can really answer that is someone from Social Security, or give you a good idea of what would happen would be to get that benefits.
I was just going to think you need a certified benefits counselor, is someone who could really talk you through that much better and know your exact circumstances to be able to advise you well.
And there's so many ifs, ands, buts, and accepts. And so it's just impossible to answer those types of questions on a call like this.
Yeah.
Sorry.
All right. And I think that's it. There's one that says, how does DDD, says how DDD means people's stabilities go to doctors. So would that mean, how does DDD help people independently go to the doctor with transportation? Is that what you mean? If you could clarify. And while we're waiting for that, I just want to say this was amazing. So much valuable information. I'm so happy that people were able to ask their personal questions of things that they are going through. Adam and Amy have their information up on the screen as well. We are past 3, but I, really appreciate everybody being here. Adam, Amy, I appreciate you both being here so much. Thank you so much for this wonderful webinar.
pleasure.
Adam put a survey in the chat as well, if you could fill out that
I'm
survey.
so sorry to interrupt. If I could just mention the survey, just so you know, the survey, we have initiative from the federal government that we need to really track who is attending our presentation. So this is a demographic survey. I can assure you it is anonymous. We just like to know who's listening, and we have to report on that numbers wise to the feds. So I appreciate it. Please fill it out.
And it's going to get sent out on an email after this. We also attached a glossary of terms and frequently asked questions into the chat too. If you need them again, let us know. We'll make sure that goes out in the follow-up email, and we'll be sending copies of the slides if they help you out in the follow-up email as well. So we hope those resources help you kind of navigate through the system. And Adam and I, we have our contact information up there. If you have any questions that you kind of just want to talk through and give some really good details about your scenario, we're both more than happy to kind of think it through and talk it through with you and try to customize things as best we can. Because the important part is that you're successfully employed in the place that you want to be in with the supports that make sense for you. And that's our goal. And so any way we can help you achieve that, we'd be more than happy to do so.
And then worst case scenario is we'll connect you to someone who can, if we can.
Excellent. Thank you all so much. If there's any other questions, please direct them to Amy and Adam's emails. And again, thank you all so much for being here. Amy and Adam, thank you so much for this wonderful webinar. And we're getting a lot of thank yous in the chat and in the Q&A, so I know it was appreciated as well by our participants. So thank you all so much, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday.
You too. You're most welcome.
Take it easy, everybody.